Hi guys, so today is lesson 4, but remember what we were talking about in lesson 3? We were talking about first literary analysis commentary, then historical commentary, and now it's time to talk about cultural commentary. So, cultural commentary refers to analysis, critique, or discussion of various aspects of culture. This includes social norms, values, custom trends, and behaviors. Of course, this involves examining and interpreting cultural phenomena such as art, literature, music, fashion, language, films, and popular media. This provides insight into the underlying meanings and implications within a given society or time period. Cultural commentators often explore the ways in which cultural elements reflect and influence societal attitudes, beliefs, and changes. They may offer perspective on the impact of cultural development, challenge prevalent norms, or provide a deeper understanding of the dynamics at play at a particular cultural context. Nowadays, we can nowadays I mean in digital society we have a digital society very strong. In this case, cultural commentary could take various form. For example, read articles, essays, blogs, podcasts, videos, even video blogs, academic research. Other things played a crucial role in fostering dialogue, promoting critical thinking, contributing to the better understanding, of course. This typically involve an in-depth analysis and reflection in various cultural aspects. So, while the specific component may vary based on the medium and purpose, here are some key elements commonly found in cultural commentary. We have here the introduction, thesis, or main argument. As you can see, every key has detail itself. For example, introduction briefly introduces the cultural phenomenon, event, or topic under discussion, provide context to help readers or listeners understand the significance. So you can see, as I mentioned before, we have here some characteristic of that. Number two, thesis or main argument. Then we have analysis or cultural phenomenon. This provide a detailed examination of the cultural subject. If it's art, social trend, film, book, etc. Before this, we had thesis. Clearly, it is the main argument. Now, item 4, we have the contextualization. Place the cultural phenomena within its broader cultural, historical, or social context. Number 5, we have interpretation. This could lead an analysis of the cultural phenomena, exploring possible meanings, symbolism, their relation to society. This is kind of a discussion about the cultural phenomenon reflects or influences societal norms, values, or trends. Then we have the personal perspective. This is like an opinion, reaction, expression, speaking about experiences. Then we have the critique and evaluation. This assesses the strengths and weakness of the cultural phenomenon, the cultural impact, examine the potential impact of the cultural phenomenon on individuals and society. And last one, we have the conclusion. Of course, we have to summarize the key points and arguments present in the commentary. Of course, the specific structure and emphasis on these components can vary according to every topic. So this could take to make the cultural commentary can take different forms depending on the platform or medium through which is pretended. Whether reinforced spoken word or visual media, effective cultural commentary engages the audience and encourages thoughtful reflections on the cultural aspect being discussed. Now we have here a step-by-step guide written a cultural commentary. For example, step number one, select a cultural phenomenon. We have to choose a specific aspect of culture to analyze. Could be a film, a book, social trend, piece of art. For example, in this case, we will choose the film Blade Runner 2049. This could be all cultural phenomenon. Number two, research and gather information. This is the part we can investigate about it. So, follow our example, we can researching the director, the original Blade Runner film, and the cultural and technological context of 2049. Develop develop a thesis. So here we can formulate a clear thesis statement that encapsulates the main argument or perspective we want to explore in our commentary. For example, thesis Blade Runner 2049 serves a thought provoking commentary on the ethical implication of advanced artificial intelligence and impact on human identity. Number four, analyze the cultural phenomenon. We have to break down the cultural phenomenon into key components. Key components, remember, are here. So we analyze the themes, characters, symbolism, and any relevant cultural elements. For example, analyzing the film's portrayal of replicants, the visual aesthetic, and exploration of existential questions. Provide context. You have to place a cultural phenomenon within its broader context, discuss historical, social, or cultural factors that influence its creation. For example, discussing the influence of the original Blade Runner, the evolution of science fiction, and contemporary debates on artificial intelligence. Interpretation. Let's go to the example. Interpreting the use of dystopia aesthetics to comment on societal fears and exploration of what it means to be human in a technologically advanced world. Relation to society. Let's go to the example discussing how the film raises questions about the ethical treatment of artificial intelligence and prompt viewers to reflect on the consequences of technological advancement. Personal perspective. Here, we can share our personal reactions, opinion, or experiences related to the cultural subject. For example, sharing personal reflection on the emotional impact of the film and its relevance to contemporary discussion on artificial intelligence ethics. Critique and evaluation. In this case, critiquing the film's pacing while praising its cinematography and thought-provoking narrative. Cultural impact. Examine the potential impact of cultural phenomenon on individuals and society, for example, discussing how Blade Runner 2049 contributes to ongoing conversation about artificial intelligence ethics and the future of humanity. Conclusion. This is the end part. So here we can summarize the key points and arguments presented in the commentary. For example, concluding with a summary of the film's impact, its cultural significance, and the enduring question it raises about humanity and technology. We have here an example of introduction. Blade Runner 2049, directed by Denis Villeneuve, is a cinematic exploration of the ethical dilemmas surrounding advanced artificial intelligence and its profound impact on the human experience. Released in 2017 as a sequel to Ridley Scott's iconic Blade Runner from 1982. The film not only continues the narrative of replicant and human in a dystopian future, but also pushes to the boundary of visual storytelling and philosophical inquiry into the nature of consciousness. Well, remember, the example provided is just a starting point, and the depth or complexity of our cultural commentary will depend on the specific cultural phenomenon. Everybody can choose, of course, to analyze and the depth of our exploration. So I will show you here some videos taking our example, analyzing Blade Runner of 2009. Let's watch it.
California, 2049. Ecosystems have collapsed. Green fields turned to dirt, metal, and plastic. Trees are but a distant memory. A long time ago, man lost his spiritual connection to nature, replaced it with a physical one, and now, finally, she has been conquered, reduced to her basic elements, the last artifacts of her existence. In this ecology without nature, the world is designed by a blind man who can perceive it only through his own technology. He is God, and yet, the true miracle of creation eludes him. A man flies over the artificial landscape. He too is artificial, born of technology, a replicant, ordered to hunt down his own kind. A Blade Runner.
We didn't have any of you where I was a kid. Do you remember anything?
I have memories, but they're not real. They're just implants.
When we meet Kay, we see a man who lacks our romanticism towards the natural world, who seems to have embraced the artificiality around him and within himself. He knows he is engineered, knows his memories are implants, and knows his girlfriend is a consumer product.
I see you're also a customer. Are you satisfied with our product?
She's very realistic. Thank you.
His job is to retire older model replicants who became prohibited after a series of violent rebellions. He has no issue with this, as he believes that because replicants aren't born, they don't have a soul.
To be born is to have a soul, I guess.
The question of the soul remains one of the great mysteries of the universe, an apparent dualism in nature, between matter and that which moves it, the material and the immaterial. In The Birth and Death of Meaning, Ernest Becker explains how man discovered and elaborated it because of his own self-reflexivity, the real and apparent contradiction between the inside of his body, his thoughts and feelings, and the outside. Language allowed us to build a symbolic self, to construct an interiority unlike any other creature, putting ever more distance between ourselves and the rest of nature in the process. It gave us a soul, a belief that we're special, that we're children of Eden, a reflection of an idea that existed before matter and continues after. But perhaps even more interesting than the nature of the soul is why we seem so intent on claiming it. For outside of the soul often lies the subjugation of all that is perceived to be without it. Nature, animals, replicants. It makes one wonder, is our humanity but a product of grandiosity? An excuse for our self-proclaimed superiority? Here, the question of the soul becomes a relational issue. What does the construction of a symbolic self mean to our social world? How do we relate to others, join with them or against them? In Blade Runner's world without nature, where only the self-constructed remains, we find a microcosm of this distinctive problem of man and the evolution of the symbolic self, the beginning of the soul and the implications of its existence. The replicants a mirror to our own humanity, asking not only what can be found, but also who is looking and why. We are, in reality, somewhat split in two, the self and the body, the one hidden, the other open. The child learns very quickly to cultivate this private self because it puts a barrier between him and the demands of the world. He learns he can keep secrets. It is discovered that a replicant has given birth. To maintain the established order, Kay is tasked to erase the child and all evidence of its existence. A clue is found, a date carved into a dead tree. It is the same date that is carved into a wooden horse from Kay's implanted childhood memory. The situation resembles the beginning of Kay's favorite novel Balefire, in which a poet sees a tall white fountain during a near-death experience.
And blood-black nothingness began to spin. A system of cells interlinked within cells interlinked within cells interlinked within one stem, and dreadfully distinct against the dark, a tall white fountain played.
The image is little more than a comforting presence in his mind until he reads about a woman who, after her own near-death experience, witnessed a similar tall white fountain.
Beyond that orchard, through a kind of smoke, I glimpsed a tall white fountain, and awoke.
It transformed the innocent presence of the tall white fountain into something more, something higher than himself, and the poet sets out to find a woman. Kay too embarks on a journey to uncover the meaning of his once meaningless memory. But before we get ahead too quickly, let us first pause here and witness what appears to be the replicant's first disobedience. For it is in this moment that Kay learns something that he isn't supposed to know, feels he might be something he isn't supposed to be, and chooses to hide it. His first secret. At first an excruciating, intolerable burden. It seems that the outer world has every right to penetrate into his self and that the parents could automatically do so if they wished. They always seem to know exactly what he is thinking and feeling. Another replicant, named Love by her creator.
He named you. Must be special.
Unlike Kay, Love already seems to have cultivated the boundary between her inner self and public exterior. When a new replicant is brought into the world, Love is clearly moved, an emotion she hides from Wallace the moment his artificial eyes enter the room. In his gaze, she remains stoic.
The best angel of all. Aren't you, Love?
We learn that even the best angel of all can hold secrets. But then he discovers that he can lie and not be found out. It is a great and liberating moment, this anxious first lie. It represents the staking out of his claim to an integral inner self, free from the prying eyes of the world. There's a consequence to this duality between our inner self and the outside world, as later in life we discover that our interiority is utterly personal and unrevealable, and hopelessly separated us from everyone else. We observe the faces of others and our own in the mirror, but these are only exteriors. They are not who we feel ourselves to be. Language allows for articulation and interaction, but only to a certain extent. We never seem to be able to fully express all that is inside. And so the parts of ourselves that we value the most, our dreams, thoughts, and inner feelings, become the parts we're least able to communicate, leaving us with a fundamental longing for connection, a dream of being interlinked.
Voila! Bon appetit!
Kay's artificial girlfriend Joy perfectly illustrates this problem of connection. The film gives multiple hints that Joy is programmed to be everything we want to see and everything we want to hear. Indeed, it seems her efforts are more likely a well-programmed response to Kay's desires, rather than a reflection of her own. However, I don't think the real issue here is whether or not Joy has an inner self, but rather it reveals the difficulty to truly connect to another's interiority by showing how easily we are fooled when it's not there. People seem to keep bumping up each other with their exteriors and falling away from each other. Take even the sexual act. The most intimate merger given to organisms.
Quiet now, I have to think.
For most people, even for their entire lives, it is simply a joining of exteriors. The insides melt only in the moment of orgasm, but even this is brief, and the melting is not a communication. It is a physical overcoming of separateness, not a symbolic revelation and justification of one's interior. And so, the endless interrogations. What are you thinking about right now? Do you feel what I feel? Do you love me? This desire for connection goes beyond interpersonal relations to a deeper, more fundamental level, a yearning to be part of something bigger, to have a real place in the world, to not be alone.
Look at me. We're all just looking out for something real.
Here we find ourselves back at Kay's journey to uncover the meaning of his tall white fountain, the link between the implanted memory in his head and the real-world clues suggesting it might mean something more. We meet Dr. Anna Stelline, the creator of his memories, who confirms his suspicion.
Someone lived this, yes. This happened.
I know it's real.
It appears as if his implanted memory, thought to be designed for his comfort, actually happened. So what about his other memories? Are they real too? Is Kay the miracle child, not born from technology but from nature? Does this mean he has a soul, that he's interlinked?
I always told you. You're special. Born. Not made.
But soon the dream shatters. When the poet finds the woman who also witnessed the tall white fountain, he discovers that the magazine that posted the story made a spelling mistake. What she saw was not a fountain, but a mountain.
You imagined it was you. We all wish it was us.
In his defeat, however, lies a revelation. Life everlasting, based on a misprint. I mused as I drove homeward, take the hint and stop investigating my abyss. But all at once it dawned on me that this was the real point, the contrapuntal theme. Just this, not text but texture. Not a dream, but a topsy-turvical coincidence. Not flimsy nonsense, but a web of sense. Like the tall white fountain, the soul in itself is nothing. Not a physical entity, not a bridge to a higher, more divine realm that only we are worthy of. It only became meaningful after meaning was given to it, and it is in this effort that we find the nature of our existence. The distinctively human as a linguistic reflex. The result of constructing our thoughts, dreams, and experiences into something real enough to believe in. The self is not physical, it is symbolic. It is in the body, but it is rarely completely integrated with the body. A person is where he believes himself to be, or more technically, the body is an object in the field of the self. It is one of the things we inhabit, and here is where our discussion has been leading. It is not the text, but the texture that makes us human, the projecting of the symbolic self. The soul not as something to be born with, but as something to be constructed. Some would even say it is in this act that we find the true meaning of our lives. In Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl writes, I wish to stress that the true meaning of life is to be discovered in the world, rather than within man or within his own psyche, as though it were a closed system. I have termed this the self-transcendence of human existence. It denotes the fact that being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. The more one forgets himself, by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is, and the more he actualizes himself. For Kay, his revelation ultimately results in him letting go of his dream of being special and directing his actions towards saving Deckard, the father of Anastaline, so that they might be reunited.
Dying for the right cause is the most human thing we can do.
A noble cause it seems, but in the finale of the film we encounter its implications. For this new purpose leads him into a confrontation with Love, who is on her own mission to find a replicant child.
Get up. Find the child.
The common interpretation is that Love just wants to please Wallace, wants to make him proud, but we never truly get a glimpse of what is going on inside. We know that like Kay, she has an interior of her own and can hold secrets from the outside world, a distinctive advantage over the humans who are seemingly unaware of this.
You're so sure. Because we never lie. I'm gonna tell Mr. Wallace you tried to shoot me first.
What if she decided that replicants are just as worthy as humans, perhaps even superior? That humans don't deserve the humanity they claimed exclusively for themselves? What if, like other rebellious replicants before her, she despises her creator, but is still in need of him? For what if a replicant child existed that could finally unlock the secret to the liberation of the entire replicant species?
You tiny thing. In the face of this Atlas nuke, your only thought is to kill it? For fear of great change?
When the time comes, she could overpower Wallace. Then she would no longer be a servant, but a messiah, the savior of her species. But one man stands in her way. To her, a killer of his own kind, a dog beaten down by the police. Killing it would be an act of mercy.
Bad dog.
He's not destined for great things like she is. Here, the mirror to our humanity is fully unveiled. Not just its nature, but also its implications, the consequences of these self-constructed souls meeting each other.
I'm here for Mr. Wallace. I'm Love.
Not to determine which is more just, but to understand how they came to be, how they are brought into existence and shaped by the world around them.
Because you've never seen a miracle.
I like him. He's a good boy.
I want to be real for you.
You are real for me.
I love you.
Off-world is waiting.
Where are we going?
Home.
We need more replicants than can ever be assembled. Millions, so we can be trillions more.
We could storm Eden and retake her. How does it feel? Killing your own kind.
Do you enjoy your work, officer?
Sometimes to love someone, you gotta be a stranger. Why? Why you?
I can't help your future, but I can give you good memories to think back on and smile.
All the best memories are hers.
The people they meet, the things they care about, the causes they deem worthy, all of it ultimately defined into their own personal construction of meaning, leading to two souls, dreadfully distinct, perishing in clashing dreams of being interlinked.
That was a brilliant analysis, a brilliant criticism. Right, so speaking about criticism, we can infer criticism is a synonym of commentary or analysis. But I wanted to show you this. Criticism could be literary criticism, social, cultural. Etymology. Etymology is a um, Greek word that means root of a word. So, etymology of criticism. French from Greek kritiki, the art of criticism from kritikos, critical. Latin criticus from adjective decisive from Greek kritikos, able to discern critical from kritos, separate chosen from crinane to separate choose. Criterion, I mean, for judging, standard for krites, a judge, umpire, from crinane to separate judge. Definition: the act of making judgment and or criticism, a passing off unfavorable judgment, censor, disapproval, the art skill or profession of making discriminating judgments, and evaluation, especially of literary or artistic works, a review or other articles expressing such judgment and evaluation, the detailed investigation of the origin and history of literary documents. Definition of literary criticism: this is kind of the same as we were talking about on previous lessons. Practice describing, interpreting, and evaluating literature. Now, this is important for us because this is our topic today. Definition of cultural criticism: the practice of describing, interpreting, and evaluating culture. Cultural criticism makes the term culture refer to popular and classic culture. It breaks down the boundary between high and low culture and discovers the political reason why a cultural product is more valued than others. Functions: criticizing cultural works, verifying cultural theories, supporting cultural history. Types: theoretical cultural criticism, practical, historical, diagnostic. Types of practical: impressionistic cultural criticism, analytical, this is or real judge or real word here, judicial cultural criticism. Types of writing criticism: scientific, popular, creative. Orientation of cultural criticism: mimetic, pragmatic, expressive, objective. Theories of cultural criticism: formalism, neocriticism. So you can see there's a lot of theories. Marxist criticism, psychoanalysis. Objects of cultural criticism: music, media, lifestyle, game, film. In this case, we made a cultural commentary or criticism on a film. Remember that? Methods: library research, field research. In this case, we can use the internet research. Steps: reading cultural work, writing impressionistic comment, writing analytical review, writing judicial inference. Application of cultural criticism for music, media, lifestyle, games, film. Criticism of music, we can find here intrinsic and extrinsic aspect. Intrinsic: lyric, audio, visual. Expressing social, political, psychological, philosophical, religious, cultural. Media, the same thing. Lifestyle, the same thing. In this case, are different in interesting aspect of music, but similar media and lifestyle. Games, in this case, of course, is the same, and also film. Now we were watching on a movie right before, right? In this case, for film, we use Blade Runner 2049. Well, I want to show you now another video, but in this case, shorter, of course, and speaking about what cultural criticism is. But before watching, please remember to go to the forum after watch the video, after read or text this text and this text. please try to read again because we have our section of forum lesson, right? So don't forget about that. So now we can watch the video.
We talk about culture. A lot of times we talk about highbrow culture. So things like opera, ballet, or the sculpture of Rodin or the paintings of Leonardo da Vinci. Maybe it's the literature, plays and sonnets of Shakespeare, or the poems and short stories of Edgar Allan Poe. The classics. Culture is often signified and transmitted through the arts, but it's more than just that. It includes the customs, beliefs, and laws of a group. The question that the cultural critic is interested in isn't so much what culture is, but what it does. And that is that culture transmits and perpetuates the values and ideologies of the group. So do you see a problem with that? Because the cultural critics do. That capital C culture is what we call the dominant culture. It belongs to people who look like me, white, Protestant, traditionally educated men. Age me 20 years and I could be the mascot for this culture. When we privilege this type of culture, we transmit the values and seek to keep the dominant culture dominant. Instead, the cultural critic is interested in what the dominant culture might consider the other, or marginalized groups. And these groups are often based on social class, religion, race and ethnicity, gender, and sexuality. When it comes to literature, the cultural critic is interested in the writing of those who belong to these marginalized groups, as well as how they're depicted in literature from the dominant culture. When Springboard speaks of cultural criticism, this is what they're most interested in. Now, these are some of Springboard's ideas about the use of cultural criticism. So ethnicity, religious beliefs, sexual identity, and so on are crucial components of formulating interpretations of text. And this is true in literature from the dominant culture as well as from marginalized culture. An examination of the relationship between dominant and marginalized cultures is essential in all literature. When looking at a text through the perspective of marginalized people, new understandings emerged, especially if you don't belong to a marginalized group. Finally, cultural criticism is not the only means of exploring meaning in texts, nor is it exclusionary. There is feminist cultural criticism and Marxist cultural criticism. To wrap it up, the cultural critic explores the relationship between dominant and marginalized groups in literature. The cultural critic recognizes the value in art outside of the classics, whether it be poetry or fiction for marginalized groups, or pop culture. The cultural critic uses a critical lens that seeks to disrupt the hold of the traditional dominant culture on literature.